Jesus went to church one day and asked a group of people this question. What do you think's the right thing to do on the Sabbath day? Good things or evil things? Do you think it's right to save a life or to kill somebody? Seems like a pretty easy question to answer, doesn't it? They were silent. Nobody answered the question. You want to know why? Stay tuned. Next episode of Crossroads Online.
Hi everyone, my name is Barrick.
And my name is Evan, and we just wanted to welcome you to our Crossroads Online service. If you are new here, there's going to be a number on the screen. You can text here to that number. We can get you connected with our Crossroads community and keep you up to date with the events we have going on.
Absolutely, and we are in a series called For Good, where we are looking at how God created us to do good in the world on His behalf, and we're looking at the ways that we get to do that in the communities that God has placed us in, and we're really excited about the different ways that God is using Crossroads to do good in our communities.
We also have some cool events coming up. We have our Night of Gratitude coming up at Crossroads, all three campuses. Some of them are at different times, though, so make sure you go check the website for more details on when those Nights of Gratitude are happening. We also have a food drive going on right now. And in the description of this video, there will be a link to our Amazon shopping list so you can help us out. And then finally, we have Wildlife Weekend, which is a retreat for our middle schoolers that we do in partnership with Wildlife. And it'll be a great time. It's the 6th through the 8th. And if you are interested in that, all the details for all those events, including that, will be on our website.
Absolutely. And then we're doing, once again, a thing we call Gifts of Service, where during the holiday season, we give you and your families, your small groups, different ways that you can serve our communities, whether that's through Appy Time or NESAP or our community center. There are a variety of ways that you can serve the community you live in this holiday season. So check out the website, Gifts of Service, for more information on that. And we hope that you enjoy our service and that you are open to what God has for you today.
They say this mountain can't be moved. They say these chains will never break. But they don't know you like we do. There is power in your name. We've heard that there is no way through. We've heard the tides will never change. They haven't seen what you can do,
Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. However, whenever you're watching this, you've tuned in for a great Sunday because this is For Good Sunday. And it's the first one we've ever done. And I hope that by the time that we're finished, you understand why For Good is such an important thing for us that we would set one whole Sunday aside just to make sure we're super clear on it. I'm going to begin this way, though. I'm going to begin with a question that comes straight from the scripture, from the Gospel of Mark. And it's a question that Jesus asked some people in a synagogue. So imagine Jesus goes to church, and there are a bunch of church people around, and Jesus leads with this question from Mark chapter 3. Jesus asked them, which is lawful on the Sabbath, to do good or to do evil, to save life or to kill? Now, let's keep this up there for a second because I think this is a bizarre question as you're just reading through the Gospels and you think, why in the world would Jesus have to ask this question? Which is lawful, to do good or to do evil? It seems obvious to do good. Which is lawful, to save a life or to kill? You don't have to know a lot about the New Testament to understand that this should be a simple question, which is why the answer to it is even more extraordinary. Because as Jesus asked in church this question, there was silence, the scripture says. That they were unable or unwilling to answer this question. And why was it hard for them to understand? It shouldn't be difficult to choose good over evil, to choose life over taking life. But here's, I think, why Jesus asked the question, and I think here's why they had trouble answering it. Because religion has to be understood as one of the great concealers of the heart of God, not so much a great revealer of the heart of God. In other words, the heart of God gets lost in religion, happens every time. And so one of the things that Jesus came and did as he walked the earth was to move aside all the things that are concealing the heart of God, including religion, and to proclaim, reveal the actual heart of God. We'll go to another question. This one not asked by Jesus, but asked by a pastor named Jeff Henderson. He asked this question about his church. What do you want to be known for? I think it's a great question. What is it as you are building any organization or a movement, or for us, as we try to be the church that God intended us to be, what do we want to be known for? I think it's a great question. And then the follow-up question is this: what are you actually known for? This is aspirational, this first one. This is actual, the second one. What do you want to be known for? Great question. But it not nearly as good if you don't ask the follow-up question, well, what are you actually known for? I wanted to give you an example of sometimes there's a gap between these two things. Often, maybe most of the time, there's a gap between these two things. And so what do you do with the gap is the third question, but let's pause for a second. Let me give you an example. I just thought about what's an organization that maybe would have a little bit of a gap problem. And what I decided was, maybe the Motor Vehicles Association, the Department of Transportation in the state of Maryland, I bet that the way I perceive them is not the way that they want to be perceived. So I looked it up, and I found out I was right, because listen to this. If you would ask the Maryland Department of Transportation, what do they want to be known for? This is what I found. The Maryland Department of Transportation is a customer-driven leader that delivers safe, sustainable, intelligent, exceptional, and inclusive transportation solutions in order to connect our customers to life's opportunities. Is that what you know the Department of Transportation for? Is that your experience with the Motor Vehicle Administration? Me either. And so I'm not picking on them, though, because I think this is a great question for all of us, and especially for the church. And I think it was the point that Jesus was making in Mark chapter 3 when he said, look, you need to understand what we're really for. And that's what leads us to this Sunday, For Good Sunday. Many churches are known in our day for what they are against. You've maybe heard us say this before. What we come out against is usually the headline. We're anti this or against them or not approving of that, and sometimes for really good reasons. But far more than what we are against, the heart of God is that he wants to be known for what he is for. And far too often, in my opinion anyway, we understand what people are against, but when it gets to, well, what are you actually for? There's not a great answer. There's protests. We know what you're against, but what is it that you're actually for? And sometimes the silence is deafening. So let's get really clear on what are we for? What do we want to be known for? I think Jesus answered the question for us. He said, the church that bears my name, the movement that is in line with my heart, should be known for good and for life. For good and for life. And so we said, look, let's take at least one Sunday a year to remind ourselves and refresh our commitment to saying, we're for what Jesus was for good and for life. And, you know, this is not just a cool slogan that you put on a hoodie, although we have hoodies with the slogan on them that you might want to purchase. This is the last day that you can do that on Monday. But anyway, it's not just a slogan. It's actually critical, a critical component to the gospel that we proclaim. And more than that, it's certainly an aspect of the life of Jesus that was unmistakable. Jesus was, for all the other things, often known and criticized by the people that he was for. If you've read any of the New Testament, I invite you to count the number of times that Jesus is for the wrong people according to the religion of his day. That he is for people who are marginalized, who are under-resourced, who are foreigners, who are outsiders. And Jesus continually says, no, the heart of God is for you. And he's afraid that if he didn't step in and correct the interpretation of the people of his day, that they would get the sense that God is against them. And I think the same is true today. That Jesus wants the church that bears his name to proclaim in word and deed that God is for people that often assume, because of the actions and words of the church, that God is against them. So what would it look like for us to take up the banner of for good? We're for good, and we are for life. The Apostle Paul, in planting the first churches all around the Mediterranean after the resurrection and ascension of Jesus, was really clear how important this would be. He was always connecting the gospel with the good. That he said these things are inseparable. That God has good news for us, and we are for good for people around us. And one of the places that the Apostle Paul shares this most clearly is in his letter to the church in Ephesus. As he's writing, probably from jail, to this church in Ephesus. We have the recording of it in the book of Ephesians in the New Testament. He writes these 3 verses in Ephesians chapter 2. For it's by grace you've been saved through faith. This is not from yourselves, it's the gift of God. It's not by works, so no one can boast. For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. So here the Apostle Paul, he combines these 2 ideas. The gospel, the good news, produces good works, produces for good for people. Let's backtrack for a second, because in verses 8 and 9, there are some really pivotal, critical ideas that are central to the gospel. Maybe it's helpful to enumerate them. So let's look at these words for a second. The first word is grace. The second word is saved. The third word is faith. And the fourth word is gift. All 4 of these are really important pieces of the gospel that we proclaim. The first one is grace. Grace is unmerited favor. It's being given something that you do not deserve. And it's the beginning of the gospel, of the good news, that you and I receive something from God that we do not deserve. The next word is saved. And sometimes that word is thrown around in church circles, and it sounds awkward to people outside of the faith or outside of church. Maybe you're confused by what does that actually mean? And it's a natural extension of what have we been given? We've been given the absolute opposite of what we deserve. So we don't receive God's wrath that we deserve. We just receive God's love that we haven't earned. And so it's more than just not being penalized. That's part of it, but it's so much more than that. Salvation means that not only do we not receive what we do deserve, we receive what we don't deserve. And that's not only not being punished, that's being adopted into the family of God. That's what we are. We are people who have been adopted by God into his family to be loved by him. We receive that by faith. There is a component of how we receive that requires that we put our faith in what's done for us and not in ourselves. So God extends grace, offers us salvation. We receive that completely by faith. That means the only thing that you need is nothing. But that's sometimes the hardest thing to admit we have. Nothing. With open hands, by faith, we can receive the salvation that's provided by the grace of God. And then finally, it's a gift. It's a gift from the beginning to the end of the process. It's a gift because of the heart of God, not because of the activities of me or you. So the Apostle Paul says, look, this is the gospel that we proclaim. It is upside down. It is the opposite of what the religions of the first century and, by the way, the 21st century often promote. This is the good news. But what for? What is it for? And I would say it's for good. It's for good right now. Look at verse 10 again. It says, for, that whole gospel explanation is for, we are God's handiwork. This word, it can also be translated masterpiece. It's a one of a kind. It's a work that it displays the heart of the artist. That's you. That's me. We are God's handiwork, created in Christ to what? To do good. The whole reason for the gospel is for us to do good. God has prepared in advance for us to do good. And so, For Good Sunday is the reminder of our identity and the connection between the gospel and our job here on earth. That begs the question, why? Why would God have put us here, left us here, just to do good stuff? I mean, why doesn't God, when we receive his salvation by faith, why doesn't he just zap us up to heaven? What are we waiting around for? For good. And I think that doing a deep dive into understanding why that's so important to God can transform and help us to embrace why it should be so important to us. So one more scripture for today. It's an example, I think, of why this principle is so important for us to grasp and to understand, because it reveals the heart of God. It happens in Matthew chapter 14. And Jesus is teaching on a hillside, and he's healing people that have been brought to him. The verses right before where we're going to pick up the story, it says he had compassion on the crowd as they were looking to him to get things that they couldn't find anywhere else. Perfect. So he had compassion on them, and he'd been there all day. And then verse 15 says this: as evening approached, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a remote place, and it's already getting late." Now, I don't know if they thought Jesus was unaware of this. Maybe he was caught up in meeting the needs of people, and maybe he just wasn't aware. So they were going to remind Jesus of these two facts. We're in a remote place, and it's getting late. And so given that, understanding, observation, the disciples come to this conclusion, and they tell Jesus what he should do. Here's a hint. It's not a great strategy. Send the crowds away, they tell Jesus, so that they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food. Now, let's keep this up there for a second. What a fascinating interaction that his disciples, those ones that Jesus has chosen to learn his ways, they say, hey, just in case you haven't noticed, we're pretty far away from the village, and it's getting late, and the people are getting hungry. Guess who else I think is probably getting hungry at this point? Yeah, them. And so they're like, look, we better jump into action here, because clearly Jesus has, not planned this thing all the way. So we'll help him out. And they come up with a plan of their own. They say, here's the plan. Send them away. Let them buy themselves some food. Now, is there anything wrong necessarily with this plan? No. There's nothing necessarily wrong with the plan. It just doesn't demonstrate the heart of Jesus. And so, in this really fascinating turn of events, verse 16 says this: Jesus replied, I understand. They don't need to go away. You give them something to eat. You do it. You give them something to eat. Now, why would Jesus say that? I think it's a beautiful demonstration of revealing the heart of Jesus. Because is there anything wrong with sending them away so they can feed themselves? Nope. Was it be possible? Was it be? That's not a word. Would it be possible for Jesus to just meet the need without involving the disciples? Of course. Yeah, he's walked on water. He's calmed wind and waves. Old Testament, God's able to make manna fall from heaven. Jesus could have solved this problem in any way he wanted, including sending them away. But it wouldn't have revealed the heart of God to his disciples who were going to be entrusted with the message of the gospel. And so he says, no, you give them something to eat. Why did he do it that way? What's behind this command response of Jesus? Well, if you know the rest of the story, what happened was that they found a young man who had a couple of loaves of bread and some fish. And they took it, and Jesus blessed it, and then they started handing it out. And there was enough for everybody. And I stopped and I thought, okay, so what was gained? What was accomplished because Jesus said to do it this way? No, you give them something to eat. Here's my beginning of my list. First, they understood the heart of Jesus. It wasn't sending people away. It was inviting them in to meet their needs. Second, they were forced to focus on what they had versus what they didn't have, right? And they didn't have much. And sometimes that's what stops the process is we interpret much versus little differently than what God does. Third, they involved others. They had to, I don't know what this conversation was like. Like, you're the only one who thought to pack a lunch, and here we are, we got nothing. We need your lunch. We need your fish and your loaves. But they had to involve someone else and make an ask of someone that probably was uncomfortable and that they couldn't completely explain. They had to start distributing before they knew how it would end. They had the chance to experience the joy of being part of a blessing more than they could ever imagine. They were a physical part of watching what God was doing for this crowd. And finally, maybe there's way more. I just ran out of time. They had their faith increased by knowing that what just happened was not at all about them. Right? Like, how could you get to the end of this process of handing out all these things? Your plan was to send them away, let people figure it out. Jesus said, no, you do it. Then you were a part of this inexplicable miracle, and you get to the end of it, and you were like, look at me. A little applause for, Thomas and Peter. No, nobody would do that. You would just be in awe. Your faith would be overflowing about the one who you knew was responsible, and it sure wasn't you. So Jesus says, you feed them. Here's my question for us. Does Jesus still say that? Does Jesus still say, you do it? I think way more than maybe we are aware. Jesus turns to his disciples, his church today, and says, you do it. Does it mean other plans are wrong or bad? Probably not. But why does he still do it? I think the same reason that he did it in this encounter, because he has something for his disciples in the process of doing good. And so the question is, how will we respond? When Jesus says, You do it. How will we respond? Will we take the opportunity to theoretically respond? Or will we take the opportunity to actually respond? You know the difference, right? Like, I'm great at responding in theory. Like, I understand, and I want to be known as the kind of person who would, in faith, do all these great things. But in reality, I don't do very much. This is one of those. For Good Sunday is one of those exclamation points on, will we respond in action to the invitation that God gives us to distribute, to reveal his heart to the world? Or will we respond theoretically? Yay, God. And don't do anything different. I don't know what that makes you feel like. It makes me feel excited. It makes me feel challenged, and sometimes I need that. And, you know, if you're here or watching this, exploring faith, this is probably one of your questions, is why do the people who claim to follow Jesus not look so much like Jesus? Well, this is our reminder that we want to answer that question well. We want to become more like the one that we claim to follow. And can I just say, do you see what's at stake here? Jesus started a movement that was so beautiful and powerful, it was irresistible. People that were nothing like him liked him and were drawn to him. We've been given this beautiful, powerful story to tell. And sometimes we haven't told it very well. And that's a shame. You know, I'm not very musically gifted. I play a little guitar, never played the piano, and I'm going to play the piano for you because I want to make a point. I've been practicing for, I don't know, a week or so, and I got this little downloadable piano for my iPad, and I thought, I should learn how to play something that's famous, and so I found this tune from Beethoven called Für Elise. Maybe you've heard it before. If you just are an elementary piano player, you probably learned this. I've been practicing, and I want to give you my best rendition of Für Elise. So here goes. You'll probably recognize the tune as I start to play it. Oh, hold on. That wasn't my best, but it's not far from it. And my guess is you weren't moved by that performance at all. It's a beautiful tune. I just don't play it very well. And we, the church, have been given this beautiful, powerful story by Jesus. And honestly, sometimes we haven't played it very well. And For Good Sunday is our reminder to say we must play it better. We must play and distribute and reveal the heart of God better than we've done so far. So here's our chance. What we're going to do as we end this service is we are going to offer an opportunity for us to respond in action, not just theory. And our annual reminder is an opportunity to bless two groups of people. First, we're going to take an offering here in a second, a special offering, and you'll be able to give online, just like in our physical campuses. And whatever's given, we're going to give it all away. We have some fantastic partners and affiliates that bless people on the fringes, people that are marginalized, people that are under-resourced, and are doing great work locally and around the world. And we're just, whatever's given during this extra offering, we're going to give it all away. Here's some of the people that we work with. From our affiliates, Community Center, Justin's Place, some of our local partners, Young Life, FCA, Good News Prison Ministry, to some of the food pantries, Community Table, South Carroll Food Pantry, some of our friends in the city at the Transformation Center, on and on the list goes. This is a great group of people. And whatever we get in our For Good offering today, we'll keep it open for the rest of the week. We're just going to give it to these people. And can I tell you how it blesses them? Of course, they need the money. Sure, they're going to be thankful for the money. But you know what blesses them even more? Is to know that everybody at Crossroads is for them. We're going to say, yeah, we're for you. We're for good, and you're doing good, and we're for you, and God's for you. That's the first group that's going to be blessed by what we're about to do. And then second, you're going to be blessed. We are going to receive the blessing that Jesus gave to his disciples when he said, you feed them. You do it. And we've been talking about trusting God. I trust in God, I trust. Well, do you? Do I? Let's prove it. Let's take action. And Jesus said you'll receive more of a blessing if you give than when you even receive. Do you trust him? If you do, we're going to ask that you participate in action. And so this is completely, this offering, not about the amount. That's why we came up with an amount that we felt like was significant, but that everyone could potentially achieve. And that amount is $44.44. See what we did there? For good. 44. And it's totally not about this amount. I think this is a significant amount. I think for many of us, it's actually doable. And so we are ready to receive right now your offering of $44. You know why I say right now? Because, sometimes in executing, the timing is the most important thing. And that for me, sometimes the only difference between responding in theory and responding actually is, can I do it now? Because if I wait, even my best of intentions don't get 100% accomplished. I can do it now. And so we're ready for you right now to give. We're going to tell you how in just a second. You might need to move the decimal point. For some of you, $44, you don't know if that will work or not. Relax. Move it over to the left. $4.44. Don't think that's insignificant. Oh my gosh. That is not insignificant at all. You participated in, you feed them. Some of you can move the decimal point over a little. 444, 4,444. And you won't even worry if it clears or not. Great. For the rest of us, that would be a concern. We're going to do the 44. It's our sweet spot. And so we're going to put up here a way to give, a way to participate, a way to you feed them. We're going to give it all away. And while you do it, I want you to hear what the song's actually supposed to sound like. Here is Für Elise, the beautiful, unbelievably beautiful and powerful composition by Beethoven. Enjoy. Participate. for good.